June 6, 1944. Before sunrise, thousands of soldiers were already on the move. The ocean was cold. The sky was gray. And no one knew who would survive the next hour. Inside the landing boats, men sat in silence. Some were shaking. Some were praying. Others just stared at the water. They all knew one thing. The moment that ramp drops, everything changes. As the boats moved closer to the shore, the sound began. Gunfire. Explosions. Screams carried across the waves. The beach ahead was no longer just sand. It was a wall of fire. Machine guns waiting. Artillery already zeroed in. And there was no turning back. The boats hit the shore. The ramp dropped. And in seconds, the beach turned into chaos. Men ran forward and fell immediately. Water turned red. Sand exploded under bullets. No cover. No safety. Only one choice. Run or die. This was D-Day. And for many, it ended before it even began. The moment they reached the beach, everything collapsed. There was no order anymore. No clear commands. No safe direction to move. Only chaos. Gunfire came from everywhere. From the bunkers ahead. From the cliffs above. From positions they couldn't even see. Men tried to run forward. But many didn't make it. Some fell instantly. Others dropped to the ground, desperately crawling through the sand, trying to stay alive. But the beach gave them nothing. No cover. No protection. Just open ground. And incoming fire. Behind them, the ocean. In front of them, the enemy. There was nowhere to go. Explosions tore through the sand. Smoke filled the air. But it didn't hide them. It only made everything harder to see. Harder to think. Harder to survive. Still, they had to move. Because staying still meant death. And moving forward felt like running straight into it. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was survival. For a moment, it felt impossible. The fire didn't stop. The beach was still a killing zone. But something began to change. Small groups of soldiers started moving together. Not running blindly anymore. Thinking. Watching. Waiting for the right moment. Then, they moved. Not straight ahead, but toward the sides. Toward the cliffs. Toward the weak points in the enemy defense. Some threw smoke. Others covered from behind. Step by step. Meter by meter. They pushed forward. Under fire. Through fear. Through chaos. Some didn't make it. But others kept going. Climbing. Crawling. Fighting for every inch. And slowly, the impossible started to become real. They reached the base of the cliffs. And for the first time, they were no longer completely exposed. The enemy still had the high ground. But now, there was a chance. A small one. But enough. Because once they reached the top, everything would change. They reached the top. But the battle was far from over. The enemy was already there. Waiting. Hidden behind bunkers. Trenches. And reinforced positions built into the cliffs. The moment the first soldiers appeared, the gunfire started again. At close range. There was no distance anymore. No time to think. Only instinct. Only reaction. Explosions tore through the narrow paths. Gunfire echoed between the rocks. Every movement mattered. Every second decided everything. Some pushed forward. clearing positions one by one. Others covered from behind, holding the line. The fight was brutal, messy, unforgiving. There was no clear battlefield now. Just chaos. On the edge of the cliffs. But slowly, the defense began to break. Position by position. Step by step. They were taking control. And for the first time, the enemy was no longer untouchable. The balance was shifting. The fighting finally slowed down. The gunfire faded. The explosions became distant. And for the first time, there was silence. But it wasn't peace. It was something else. The battlefield was unrecognizable. Smoke still filled the air. The ground was torn apart. And everywhere, there were signs of what had just happened. Soldiers moved slowly now. Not running. Not shouting. Just walking. Looking. Searching. Some called out for their friends. Others already knew. There would be no answer. Medics rushed between the wounded, doing what they could. But not everyone could be saved. Some sat in silence, staring at nothing, trying to understand what they had just survived. Minutes felt like hours. And the reality slowly settled in. They had taken the position. They had pushed forward. But it came at a cost. A heavy one. Because victory didn't feel like victory. Not here. Not today. By the end of the day, the beach was no longer the same. What had started as chaos was now something else. A foothold. A position. A beginning. The soldiers who survived had done more than just fight. They had opened a path. Behind them, more forces were already arriving. More ships. More men. More equipment. The operation was moving forward. But none of it would have been possible without those first hours. Without the ones who ran into the fire. Who moved forward when everything said to stop. The cost was high. Higher than anyone expected. But the objective was achieved. And that changed everything. Because this was not just a battle. This was the turning point. The moment where the direction of the war began to shift. Not in one instant, but with every step taken on that beach. Every meter gained meant the future was changing. As the day came to an end, the reality became clear. The beach was secured. The operation continued. And history would remember this moment as a success. But for those who were there, it didn't feel like victory. Not in the way people imagine. There were no celebrations. No cheering. Only silence. And the weight of what it took. Because every step forward had a price. And that price was paid in full. The ground they stood on was no longer just land. It was a place where thousands had fought. And many had fallen. The mission moved on. The war would continue. But this moment would never leave them. Because some victories don't feel like winning. They feel like survival. And sometimes, that's the only thing left. June 6, 1944, became more than just a date. It became a turning point. Not just for the soldiers on that beach, but for the entire war. What happened that day changed the direction of history. It wasn't fast. It wasn't clean. And it wasn't easy. But it was necessary. Because every step forward opened the path for what came next. More land secured. More forces advancing. More pressure on the enemy. And slowly, The balance began to shift. The outcome of the war was no longer certain. But for the first time, there was real momentum. And it all started here. On that beach. In those first hours. Where chaos turned into progress. And survival turned into victory. Not in a single moment. But through sacrifice. Through persistence. Through those who kept moving forward. When everything told them to stop.